Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
What kind of a people do they think we are?
People in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory.
Drehkür mich ein, so wie ich es nicht eingeblendet.
It's crazy. Out of all those guys I was with, I am the only one left.
I threw my hands in the air, said, show me something.
And I said, let's meet there and have a cold Coke after the war. And he said, Robin, I'm not going to make it.
Come a little closer.
4 days before his 19th birthday. War's terrible.
Round and around and around and around we go.
It still hurts you. Even though they were the enemy, they're still humans.
Tell me now, tell me now, tell me now, you know. Not really sure how to feel about it. Something in the way you move makes me feel like I can't live without you. It takes me all the way. I want you to stay.
Why? Why put ourselves through this? Why does humanity not only engage, but insist on playing life's most inhumane game? War predates pets, farming, boats, even civilization. More children died in a single second of World War II than days of life you'll ever live. But don't worry, that didn't prevent the other 300 wars since then. We hate war, we praise war, we fear war, we crave war. Now if I asked you why people start wars, what would you say? Security? Religion? Nationalism? You might give a better answer, say money or power. But still, you're missing the root of the issue. The root behind all human motivation. A motivator so powerful that it transcends even your most fundamental need to survive. Let's refer to Maslow. If you're not familiar, each level defines a type of human motive that will only be prioritized once the prior level is fulfilled. For example, if you find yourself starving on a deserted island, you're not going to be thinking about your upcoming piano recital. The pyramid helps us understand the motives seen in everyday life. But if you turn back the clock, all of these needs evolved from our only two true instincts: the need to survive and the need to reproduce. Humans' need for procreation is just as vital as their need to eat or drink, and even more vital, meaning they'll do so at the detriment of their personal safety. In this light, war is an extension of these fundamental drives, adeptly filling all levels of our pyramid. What do you see here? A person? A human being with complex ideologies and morals? Well, I see an animal. One that is civilized, but nonetheless adheres to its subconscious biological realities. To understand human action, you can't just look at who we are, but also how we evolved to be. Today, why is loneliness such an intense feeling that's even more dangerous than cigarettes? It's because 100,000 years ago, being cast out meant certain death, so people evolved to fit in. How did an Austrian painter convince an entire nation to not only acquiesce, but fight, die, and genocide on his behalf? Turns out, they're not the exception, but the rule. In 1961, Yale professor Stanley Milgram tested this very theory by examining how far ordinary people would go in inflicting pain on others when instructed to by a figure of authority. The participants were asked to press a button that imposed increased levels of electrical shocks, all the while an actor in the adjacent room would scream, beg, and eventually fall silent. The study found 100% of people obeyed up to 300 volts and 65% continued up to the highest voltage of 450. For reference, anything above 100 volts can be considered fatal. The 1951 Ash conformity experiment proved something similar when it tested a participant's ability to compare line lengths. When alone, the participant identified the correct lines 99% of the time. But when placed at the end of a group, the participant was correct just 25% of the times. A shocked public caused both tests to be extensively replicated across dozens of different countries and time periods, but the results only validated Ash and Milgram's findings. Okay, so humans ache for belonging, but once you're in a group, how do you know you actually belong? Hierarchy is an inevitable consequence of a genetically different social group, and status refers to your power within said group. Over the 200,000 years of human history, 80% of women to ever live has procreated, while just 40% of every man has, meaning one guy has 2 girls while the other guy is none. Now this wasn't decided with a coin flip. Over every single type of social hierarchy throughout history, from egalitarian hunter-gatherers to the earliest civilizations to modern day, status is the primary determinant of male reproductive success. Now for women, if you're fertile, chances are you're pregnant, whereas men are naturally selected based on their ability to acquire status. More status equals more offspring, while duly serving is a major barrier to ostracization. Okay, I get it, status is important, but how do I actually get some? Nowadays, we compete primarily through money. More money equals more resources equals more status. But cavemen didn't pay for resources. They took them. If I kill you, your wife becomes my wife, and your future children now bear my violent genetic code. What is violence? Really, it's just an exertion of power, a hammer in the toolbox of male mating strategies. It's a common misconception that testosterone simply causes aggression. More test equals more libido, evolutionarily leading to heightened status sensitivity, meaning bigger serotonin spikes for wins and extreme serotonin withdrawals for losses. Now what does this mean in practice? Fight to the death for my honor. Humans are a dimorphic species. If you line up 1,000 women, just one will be stronger than the average man. Was this too a result of a coin flip? No, men evolved to fight. In 1974, English zoologist Jane Goodall witnessed a startling series of events while studying a group of chimpanzees in Tanzania. A brutal and coordinated attack by a coalition of male chimpanzees when encountering a lone male of a rival faction. An event that would spark the beginning of the brutal 4-year-long Gombe chimpanzee war. A conflict that would result in the systematic extermination of every single Kahama tribe male and post-menstrual female. But what instigated Kasekela's series of attacks? Well, in the early 1970s, the tribe faced an abnormally high male-to-female ratio. Even more shocking was the killing of Kahama's matriarch, Madam B, in which her daughter, Little B, patiently watched the attack take place and proceeded to instinctually follow the Kasekelas back to their camp. This war observed in our closest relatives draw striking similarities to our own history. Excavated prehistoric massacre sites found bashed up male skulls, but no reproductive aged females. The biting and mutilation of rival chimps' genitals resembles our own practice of castration that was once so common. But it was perhaps the inception of the Gombe chimpanzee war that most poignantly parallels our own clashes. When you raise the ratio of single men to single women, the result will almost always be violent. The reason why is pretty simple. Female scarcity raises male competition, raises incentive for violence. A study of China's one-child policy found a 0.01 increase in male-to-female sex ratio led to a 3% increase in violence. A 0.1 sex ratio increase leads to an 80% increase in rape. But it's not just state-incentivized abortion that leads to a single male surplus. Polygamy also, and even more severely, leads to a constrainment of available females. Polygynous nations are up to 80% more likely to experience civil war compared to monogamous ones. Compare the Fragile States Index with the legality of polygyny, and you might notice some parallels. Highly polygamous Mongol and Viking societies incited their raiding culture and in turn widespread concubinage for the elite. At the extreme end of history's polygamous standard, you get to most explicitly see how war fulfills that drive to reproduce. Genghis Khan, Ismail Sharif, or basically any man throughout history who had a 3-digit child count only accomplished this through means of war. Undoubtedly, ancient warfare had a pretty simple playbook. Kill the men, the woman. But Kobe, that was like a million years ago. We're civilized now. Well, the incivility of war brings out the incivility of rape, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a single war without it. Even recently, it's staggeringly common. World War I, World War II, Partition of India, Bangladesh Liberation, Bosnian and Rwanda Genocide, Second Congo War, Iraq War, even the current Russia-Ukrainian War. But hey, just because I drove my car to go to the store doesn't mean I went to the store to drive my car. And the theory that men start war purely for sex/reproduction is a little simplistic. After all, there are plenty of famous commanders throughout history who had few or even no children. That's because your offspring, or genetic legacy, is just one kind of legacy. If you plot human instincts onto Maslow's pyramid, you notice the top layer is uniquely absent any. That's because it's not one. Every other instinct and tier can be found in chimps or many other animals. However, for all our animal nature, humans have a rather unique grasp on our own mortality. And with that, a hope for immortality, a hope to be remembered, a drive to build a legacy. Our yearn for legacy is an interesting combination of our two fundamental instincts. When you mix that intrinsic need to survive with the brutal realization of death, a need to cope with that emerges. Whether it's religion, spirituality, or legacy, it essentially mimics that reproductive animal instinct to pass on our lineage. As men climb up the social hierarchy, their primary war motive shifts. The cannon fodder in Somme or draftee in Saigon walk straight into death only because there's other comrades do the same. When you're a low-ranking soldier, group membership becomes extremely important, since in the past, ostracization meant death anyway. Now as you move up the totem pole, your membership becomes more secure. No one questions if the leader is a part of the tribe, he essentially defines it. And when you reach the top of the mountain and there's no hierarchy left to climb, you might find yourself wondering, what's next? How shall I be remembered? You might focus on fatherhood, invent a language, or even democracy. Or you might just find yourself invading Poland. So back to the why, I guess it's pretty simple. Men wage war for click, class, and print, the product of reproductive instincts that surpass their need to live. Women willingly die in childbirth for motherhood, the same way men willingly die in war for glory. Different paths, but really same goal. An unsettling, yet inescapable trade-off of life for death. Peek behind man's cloak of ostensibility, and you'll see the skin of a bloodthirsty animal. A laid bare reflection as to why do we war.